All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is Monday, the 22nd, and this is your end of day recap. So S&P locked in a really tight range today, but there were some decent movers that went on today, and some surprises. I thought today, when you look at the overall average for the S&P, it was in a pretty tight range. From when we opened this morning, I just want to shoot over to the 1 hour bar. 1 hour bar, what I talked about this morning was that we had some resistance at 20, sorry, let me just change this here. Oops. Yeah, there we go. 29.92 on the 1 hour bar. Interesting. We try to get into there, and very, very, very short term thinking is that we got rejected there. The 5 minute value area also. So nice to see this move in the right direction. And that just barely got into value. Notice there's a developing version point of control for tomorrow. We'll see if we get a little bit of momentum to the upside. That could be something that we take out. And that would be really nice for market bulls, considering, I think everybody noticing a bearish engulfing bar that developed on Friday. Late on Friday, we got a sell off. But if we can get back above this, it kind of negates that whole thing. Qs were much stronger today. The Qs were up 80 basis points. So still, this is considered an inside day. I just went over this very briefly in the member midday video. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, you can't really make too many conclusions other than, hey, a nice little bounce and a nice day trading day to have for the Qs. But up 80 basis points. And an inside day. Remember, an inside day just means that you really can't draw any conclusions from it. It is not getting below the open of, above the open of the red candle or below the close. So you just need more information. You need a little bit more data to figure out what this day is going to be. Sorry, not this day, but what the trend is going to be after this, right, in the short term. Looking over at IWM, this continues to be a disappointment, and maybe providing an overall indicator of what's to come here. Big put buying in the IWM ETF today. There was this 85,000 August 23rd, 146, 143 put spread. Normally you would say, okay, somebody's putting on a little bit of downside protection, and only paying 33 cents for something like this. But 85,000 times, that's a pretty decent size order. So again, don't know who the player is. As always, you never know who is putting on these types of trades, but that's almost a $3 million trade, and they followed it up with more after that. This was the first trade was actually 22,000, and then they put on a larger one for 85,000. Now there were some calls too in IWM, but they were pretty small. I think you can see one down here, 200,000, and that was more in line of what we've been seeing, for a couple of the index trades. But that's a pretty big size trade, and I wanted to bring it to your attention when somebody puts on that size of a trade. Again, the premium there, $3 million. So you don't know if they're hedging their portfolio out, or you don't know if they're just outright speculating. But that is a bearish play in EEM. Also, there was a pretty decent sized bearish play sorry if I said IWM, but I'm jumping ahead to EEM. There was also a decent sized put that went up in the emerging markets ETF. 30,000 of the October 42nd. So those are going out a little bit further, but that's also a very chunky size trade, $2.8 million. So, people are looking at maybe putting on a little bit more hedges right now. In terms of the size that people are committing. So those are just two trades. We did see some bullish activity too, but a lot of it continues to be centered around earnings plays. We're not seeing that many outright plays. Every time we see one of these plays that go up, I don't even have the Facebook order on here, but I know everybody was looking at Facebook, which saw at the end of the day. And these were weeklies, right? The July 26th. So again, difficult to speculate or to know what they're doing here, but a total of 76,000 of the Facebook 227 and a half calls traded. So 76,000 times 0.38. And again, we'll have to look at open interest because there's probably some day trading in there. But that's $2.8 million. So two things, right? Probably that somebody is looking to do. So first of all, if you look at the implied move for Facebook for earnings that they report later in the week, the implied move, I had this up in front of me, but let me just recalculate it. So if you don't know how to figure out what the implied move is for earnings, what you want to do is you want to take the weekly options and find the at the money calls, at the money puts, and add up the premium. So the 202, well, let's use 202 and a half. The calls there cost about 650. The puts cost about 660. When you add that together, you get a little bit north of $13 divided by the current stock price. So it's about 7%. 6.6% is the implied move. What the options are implying, right? So how far out did they go in these 227 and a half calls? Again, you could see most of these orders were pretty small, but they just added up to a lot. So again, Facebook implying a 6.6% move for earnings. They went all the way, so 227 and a half minus 202 divided by 202. They went out 13%. So either they're thinking that the Facebook move that Facebook is, so if they're speculating to the long side, which I don't necessarily know that they're doing here, but they could be thinking that Facebook really moves on earnings much more than the implied move of 6.6%. They're betting for basically double the size of that. Or they're selling some out of the money calls versus a long position, thinking that Facebook could go up, but not 13%, which is double the implied move. So you have to equate in your mind, what do you think is more? Do you think somebody really knows something that Facebook is going to move 13% on earnings, more than double the size of what the implied move? So you could take that view, that somebody knows something really positive about Facebook, or you could take the other view and say somebody probably has some Facebook stock and they're selling some options against their position. So again, and going twice as much as the implied move and gathering some premium against their position, and they're capping their upside to 227 and a half. So again, you have to kind of weigh that. I don't have the answer to that, but you have to think about, as a trader, as an investor, what do you think Facebook is going to do? Do you think it's going to move twice as much as the implied move? Or do you think that what the options market maker is implying is more true to to what these options went up at 227 and a half calls? All right, so I'm not going to answer that question for you because I don't have the answer, but you should always be thinking about this in terms of the option flow that you see on tape. What's more probable out of those two scenarios? So anyway, we'll leave that one alone. We'll come back to Facebook obviously later in the week. Now, of course, you can use this to your advantage. You don't have to know the answer of that. You can think about that. That this is going to get some attention on the tape. It got attention on CNBC, and it may catch a little bit of momentum into earnings. That's a probability too, that this option could actually increase. So that's, I guess, choice number 3, is that someone is thinking that Facebook rallies into the number and they may be able to get out of this 227 call position prior to earnings, but if Facebook really rallies into their print. I can tell you that the Facebook chart does not look bad, and that's not a bad way to think about it too. So you could decide to put something like that on and look for a rally into the earnings, and then maybe take the position off before they actually report, and you can make a little bit of money like that without betting on the unknown, which is earnings. All right, so spend a little bit of time on that, but these are all things to consider, because I think that you can make money on on how people are positioning or how people are perceiving that they're positioning. And you could also take advantage of what we know that normally happens is that the implied value of the options usually goes up going into a unknown event. So something to think about. I like to play that a lot when I'm playing. I try to look a little bit ahead for some names. So that brings us to Apple. There was a nice analyst note on Apple. Hey, I really like this. I mentioned this a couple times today. I think it needed to get above basically like the week's highs. So if we go over to the 1 hour bar, notice that we've kind of taken out resistance here. So I would be looking for Apple to run into earnings. Who knows what they're going to do, but analysts putting out positive notes kind of forces shorts to cover a little bit if they are in the stock, and maybe a little bit of pre-positioning on the long side. I actually really like this. I know you could theoretically draw another chart, another line up here. What I see on the 1 hour bar and where I think that we can get to in Apple. Remember, Apple doesn't report this week; it reports next week. But 210.79. I think that is a great play to think about to see if this name catches a little momentum and takes out that 210 210 50 60 VPOC up here on the 1 hour. All right, so that's another, covering this. I didn't even get to today's best performers yet. Today's best performers, and I think this is really good for the market, is the semiconductors, right? They are continuing to act very well. Uh, Nice upgrade note by Goldman for some of the names. By the way, they didn't upgrade every name, but we actually I went over a few of these names in the semiconductor space in the weekend video, which I just posted. You could now see that on YouTube. I just made that public, but we talked about Lam Research. Unfortunately, I was not in Lam Research, but look at this gap up here. I think Lam Research can get north of 220, so really nice move there. Kemet is another name that we profiled. I really like that move coming out of the sideways action. Of course, Micron has just been running and running since it reported earnings. Western Digital is another name that I think is interesting here. If you look at the weekly chart, it does have to get above 57.61, but you could possibly play for a move before it reports earnings up to 57.71 and then maybe take it off. All right, because I think at this point there's so much good news about the semiconductors. They're starting to get pretty price. The good news I think is starting to get pretty priced in. But anyway, that's just my take. So other groups that did pretty well, of course, Tech did well. The FANG names, Amazon, which was also got a couple analyst upgrades and was pretty much just slow to react to this today, but took off around midday today and had some momentum to the upside in Amazon. And you could see was down on the day just 20 basis points, but kind of took off here starting at 11 o'clock. The name woke up a bit. So nice move there. On the downside, so those were the best movers. Interesting retail consumer names did not do well today. XRT finished down 1.1%. So again, it remains one of those markets that seems like we're not getting very many days, which is okay that we're getting full participation. But home builders were down today. Chinese internet names were down today. Steel names were down. XLP, consumer staples, and retail. Also, I think XLU also had a bad day today too. And if you go up here, it could be somewhat to do with TLT sold off. TLT was up for the good portion of the day, and something changed there as well. That started a breakdown right around that 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock time frame as well. So bonds were soft. Interesting, bonds are right at resistance for the month. Maybe not in TLT, they're not at resistance yet, but the long bond is bond futures. So right now, not able to get above and retake that uptrend. So doing a little bit of digestion. They held the 50-day moving average, but not ready to retake and get back above value yet. All right, so that's a couple names that a few sectors for the day. Just to go further into this. Apple very strong. Again, this column is percentage change from open. So really what you want to look at is for the overall move for the day is this column AA. You can see Amazon finished up 1%, Facebook up 2%. So a really nice move by Fang. Of course, Netflix is lagging a little bit. Still, I think Netflix gets to, I think we said, what, 309 was it to the downside? I'm going from memory here. But I think we said 309. There is a Venom line, which I don't have them turned on here, but I think that's what we said. So I think getting pretty oversold at this point. Do I want to take a long in Netflix? I don't know. But if you want to maybe sell a little bit of here, I will turn this on for you so you can see what I'm talking about here in Netflix. And if we turn on Venom lines, which are very helpful once we're outside of value, notice how we bounced off this. It was 306, excuse me, not 309. 306, we actually bounced off that Venom line, and that is the that is the third Venom line down there. You don't have another one for quite a ways. So it might be a place to, after a decent move down here, and where it's pretty it's a 22 RSI, so it's pretty oversold. You could think about maybe selling a put spread and collecting a little bit of premium after a big move. That's how I would play it. But right now I've got nothing on in that name. Just back to the spreadsheet, interesting some of the software names, which again, we turn back to Friday and things look pretty bad. A lot of groups, a couple names that I held, I'm long Cyber, I'm long Zscaler. Those names really got hit pretty hard. They made a nice little recovery today. So ZS was up 1.6% today. Cyber, I think, also did okay today, was up 1.8%. A name that I added today using a long call spread, short put spread that I put out on regular Twitter. That one is starting to work a little bit. So up 1.3% in VMware. A couple other names, really a huge move for TTD. Really nice after a broker downgrade on Friday. A few other strong spots. Twilio finished up 1.2%. I think at one point this was up well over 2%. So it gave back some of those gains. Shopify did really nice as well. MDB, funny about this one is we talked about this one in our member chart forum, and we said that this had a little bit of resistance ahead at the point of control. That looks like it stopped right at the point of control, 166. That will be the barrier now for MDB, and we'll see if this one will put in something other than a lower high here, but maybe give it a little bit more time. All right, so that's the summary of today's market activity. Option activity, as I mentioned, pretty noisy for the most part today. There was some weekly stuff that went up in race and light. We did see, whoops, this should go down here. But you could see a decent amount of puts that went up today too. One other thing that I wanted to bring up today, because I know that we don't reflect on this a lot, but look at this. I just thought that this was interesting. Ray Dalio exposes unpredictability of markets. His fund lost 4.9% in the first half of 2019. Now, I don't know what their performance is. Past June, so July, maybe they've done a little bit better than that. But I can tell you right now, the S&P is up 20% year to date. So even these guys, right? It always boggles my mind a bit. These guys have such an advantage, right? They're paying for all the money in the world for research, and they've got some of the smartest minds at Bridgewater, and they're down 4.9% for the year. So this market is not easy. Just because you're really smart, it doesn't mean that you're going to make money in the market. And, we try to keep it simple as much as possible. We really rely on the technicals, the trend at Tribeca Trade Group. I mean, I'm up right now. My performance is up close to 50% year to date. We'll see. I'll flash that P&L at the end of the month. But, really just trying to keep it simple. We do use option flow. I know some traders use it a hell of a lot more than I do, but who are in the trading room. I do use it. I really kind of use it as an idea generator. I know a lot of people will use it for momentum as well, which I'll do a little bit of that. But so I'm not trying to put give myself a pat on the back or anything like that. But I think if you just stick to, a system that is very simple, that is rules based, you have a good chance to outperform in this market. Granted, we've had a really good year so far, up to 20% S&P. But again, just because the market is up that much, you could see some others. And by the way, and they're a macro fund. They're not just a long equity group. But man, it just kind of blows my mind that they're down 4.9% for the first half of the year. So again, and we had a conversation the other day about. Because I put in my video last week, smart money versus dumb money. Now, I'm not going to say that these guys are in that category either way, but man, it just shows as well. I think besides this conversation, just saying that when a lot of times when hedge funds really get crowded, I do refer to that sometimes as the dumb money, not being able to outperform and beat the S&P. So we'll leave it at there. I know that's a lot. What to expect for the rest of the week? Maybe some names will continue to kind of rally into their print, like Facebook, maybe Apple rallies a little bit more, possibly Amazon too. In terms of the reports, I think anything could happen. CDNS reported after the close today. Really good earnings expectations, and they're down to 70. They've actually recovered quite nicely here, but they hit 66 low on earnings that were not bad. Then they're showing that they're growing. I was actually trying to buy some of this, but I did not get filled. On the 1 hour, we've got two things. We've got this VPOC that was taken out at 70. And then there's another one down here at 63. I was trying to get it back at 65, and then maybe add if it happens to go lower. But I don't think I'm going to get that opportunity right now. But in any event, I think you just kind of have to keep an open mind. I think that right now you are seeing some opportunities to buy some things after a sell-off if their numbers are really good. So I would expect more of that for the rest of the week. All right, guys, that's it for today. Have a great night, and see you bright and early in the trading room tomorrow morning. Thanks, everybody.